Hey there! Today we're going to have a look at this pen. This is the Tibaldi Infrangible. I thought maybe it was Infrangibile, but it's not. It's the Infrangible, which was a word I didn't know until I got this pen, and it means something like indestructible from what I understand. Now, this pen was lent to me by Appelboom, so thank you for that. Remember that you can get a 10% discount there if you click the banner on my website if you maybe want to purchase this pen. Tibaldi, interesting brand, has been around for quite a bit, 1916 to 1965. And this is one of those brands that went under and then was resuscitated and is now back in action. So we're going to cover the parts of this pen. I'll do a writing sample and I will tell you what I like and what I don't like about it. Let's get started. Let's talk about the Tibaldi Infrangible and what I think is the peacock blue, but I've struggled a little bit finding the particular finish. Note the interesting thing they did in this box. I first thought it was a grease stain, but it's actually the profile of a fountain pen with a clip right there, which I think is kind of nice. Box, cardboard outer sleeve does have Tibaldi in relief in the side. Looks pretty nice, a little refined, as the kids say. And then we have the box, Tibaldi, eagle, another cardboard sleeve, but this one is much thicker, as they say. Then we have this pen bed, which you can take out. There is a little little baggie, 2 cartridges. I haven't opened that. And there is a Tibaldi card, which is extremely reflective. That's pretty cool. It's a warranty certificate. This is unstamped because Joost lent it to me. And then, of course, we have the actual pen, and it is right here. We'll zoom in a little bit. Maybe that's a little much. Right next to a Pilot Metropolitan, you can see this pen is a little bigger, a little girthier. One of the issues with this kind of material, the fancy swirly celluloid, is that not celluloid, acrylic, is that it really kind of depends on the specific angle which you're holding the pen and how many swirly bits you get. As you can see, this is a little bland, which is, it looks like blue and brown. There's a bit of yellow and blue here, but then the cap is actually super swirly and really colorful. So it really depends a bit on what part of the pen you are looking at, and that will determine how fancy the finish of the particular pen is. So let's cover some information about the pen. Like I said, Tibaldi has been around for quite a while, 1916 to 1965. It's one of those brands that then went under and was resuscitated. This particular model is available in several finishes. The nibs are steel, number 6, extra fine, fine, medium, broad, and double broad. It is nice that the company offers double broad. A lot of companies don't offer that grade anymore. And you get an ebonite feed, which is really cool. These also they take cartridges and converters, and both are supplied, so that's kind of nice. Let's talk about the parts of the pen. So on top here we have this finial, same material as the rest of the cap. We have this clip. The clip is really pretty tight. We have the barrel. Barrel tapers down, a little ring there, and then you have the end right there. This does not come off, it's not a blind cap, it's just the end of the barrel. Okay, cap and barrel are pretty much flush. Here it says made in Italy, and if you unscrew it, you have a nicely sized pen, I would say. A nice little groove there. The only downside to a groove right there is that if you dip this in the ink and you want to fill your converter, ink is going to get trapped in that little groove. You need to clean that out. Stainless steel nib with the little eagle. I think the Aguila family now owns this company. That might be why we see eagles everywhere. It says Tibaldi and it says F for fine. note the ebonite feed. Ebonite, really good flow characteristics, really nice to make feeds out of. A little bit of a step down from the barrel. I don't think it's anything shocking, but you know, not everyone I think would agree necessarily. Okay, so I mean, some people find it more pronounced. I haven't been bothered by it. The pen does post, and then you have a pretty decently sized pen, I would say. It's quite a comfortable size. Even unposted, I think it's nice for a lot of people. Section, I find really comfortable. So we have all these things going. We now want to see how the pen writes. Okay, how does it write? Oops. I actually find this one a little bit more comfortable posted because it's quite a light material. So here we have the Tibaldi Infrangible. This is a fine nib, steel, and the ink is Delft's Blau by Ackermann. It's a pleasant writer. It's a hard nib. This is terrible, I'm sorry, terrible writing. It's a hard nib. It's not very bouncy, but it is pretty smooth, especially for a fine nib. It always sounds scratchy. Camera mic is pretty sensitive to that particular frequency, I think. Nice flow, ebonite feed, right? Pretty nice. This is a drier ink, but pretty good. Certainly fine delivers on what the grade promises. I would say that is an actual fine. And as I said, rigid. This is not one for expressive writing or something. Very little bounce. For those of you who enjoy such a thing, reverse writing is possible and turns the already fine nib into something even finer. I would be inclined to say maybe an extra fine. Pretty good, pretty fun pen. So I had to take a sip of tea, and quite a pretty material. I wish the whole pen was more like the cap though, because I find the barrel a little bit bland just compared to the cap. Let's talk about likes and dislikes. What do I like? What do I not like about the Tibaldi Infrangible? There are a couple of things that I really like. I think it's a nice looking pen. I think the material is quite nice, and again, there are different materials available should you not like this particular material. What I will say is that I find the barrel a little boring compared to the cap. So I kind of wish the whole pen was the same material. It's a comfortable pen. It's nice. You can use it posted or unposted. I find the section very comfortable. I really like that. Number 6 nib is nice. It's a nice writer. Steel nib, unassuming steel nib. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What I will say is, sorry, I thought that was an exclamation mark in the video, but it is just that light switch. Sorry, it looks almost exactly the same on this LCD screen. Sorry, I'm sorry. Continue. Well, people would typically edit this out, but I just like to leave it in. Ebonite feed is great. That it elevates the pen. It's a small thing. I don't want to make ebonite feeds seem to be something they're not. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a magical cure for things. It's not that they are infinitely better than plastic feeds, but they do typically offer really nice flow, and that is definitely characterized in this pen. You see it writes very, very nicely, and that's something I really like. So that does elevate this pen for me. Things I don't like so much. Well, I already talked about the material. I kind of wish it was a bit more uniform, because I think these stripes on the barrel, the broad sort of stripes, are a little bit more boring than these fancy swirls on the cap. Should be a little slower. These fancy swirls on the cap. These swirls. Well, you get the point. At this price, 120 euros, you slowly but steadily, you start to get, in my mind, to gold nib territory. Now, I want to emphasize, for me, a good steel nib outperforms a poor gold nib. I've seen great steel nibs. This is definitely a nice nib. I'm not saying gold would be required, but like I said, I think people start to expect it at this price. Having said that, this is a nice steel nib, nothing wrong with that. One thing I do find is that with this kind of groove near the end of the section, I don't know how well you can see it. Let me block my face entirely. See, there's a little groove near the end there. Problem with that sort of thing is that captures ink when you dip the pen into a bottle of ink. And that can be a little obnoxious. Anyway, final thing I will say is, this might be me, this might be a very personal thing, but swirly acrylics are no longer a unique selling point. Back in the day, there were only a few companies that used colorful acrylics and they stood out at pen shows, but now these days if you go to a pen show, there's table after table of swirly, fancy acrylics. I'm not complaining about acrylics because I think you can have amazingly beautiful acrylics. That's not the issue. It's just that it's no longer a rare thing. It's become a pretty common sight. A lot of Chinese manufacturers use it. You see it in a lot of different companies, Edison Pen Company, Jonathan Brooks, like all these kinds of things. I know that's just 3 examples, but trust me, take it from me. There are a lot of pens like that. Just go to any social medias like Instagram, search hashtag fountain pen, you find all kinds of colorful acrylics. This is not to complain. All I'm saying is you've got to be careful. When I see ends like this, that means that those pens are turned in a specific way and that they didn't really flatten them, but that you just have this. Other companies do that too. You see that in Leonardo Momento Zeros, for example. It's another issue. It's not a complaint. But at some point, you start to reason that through and think, is this really worth that amount of money? I think it's a fun pen. It's colorful. It's playful. It's a very nice writer. So I'm not complaining. I'm not saying it's not worth the money. But you start to look at certain details. Let me know what you think about that specific assessment. Having said that, very kind thank you to Appelboom for lending me this pen. I appreciate it. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.